these faces, they're some of the more than 40 college-age men who mysteriously drowned. The tragedy spanning 25 cities and 11 states. Two former NYPD police officers say that they are all murder victims linked to what they call the Smiley Face killings.
What do you see here?
What I see is a circle, two eyes, a nose, no mouth, but it clearly represents a smiley face.
They were all young, popular, athletic and academic achievers. They had plans for their bright future and were deprived of the future, which seemed quite promising. Hi everyone. In this video, we will review the story of the drowning deaths of college-aged men across America and what further was proposed as the Smiley Face Murder Theory by detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, as well as Dr. Lee Gilbertson. Was it accident or murder? Alcohol or serial killers? We don't know. So, join me. Maybe together we find some new clues because the mystery is still unsolved. For Kevin Gannon, a detective in New York City, it all started in February 16th, 1997, when he was investigating the disappearance of Patrick McNeil, 20, who vanished after a night out with friends at a bar in Manhattan's Upper East Side. His body was found 2 months later floating near a pier in the East River. The death was ruled as an accident. Believing that foul play was involved, Gannon promised McNeil's devastated family that he wouldn't stop until he found out who killed their son. Over the next 15 months, 2 more men around the same age disappeared in New York City. The body of one of them was found near where McNeil's body was found, while the other was discovered in the Hudson River around 138th Street. Before going any further, let's have a look at Detective Gannon's background. In other words, man number 1 in suggesting the Smiley Face Murder Theory. Kevin Gannon was working as a sergeant in the Detective Bureau from the New York City Police Department, or NYPD, and retired in 2001 after 20 years of service, which included more than 14 years as a supervisor. He is highly experienced in personal and physical security, investigation and surveillance, and disaster response. Gannon was awarded almost 100 medals for bravery. Not only has he supervised plainclothes personnel in anti-crime, narcotics, and robbery units, but also was second in charge of the NYPD's Missing Persons Squad, as well as in charge of the Bronx Homicide Task Force from 1999 until his retirement in 2001. After retiring from the NYPD, Gannon teamed up with his old partners, Anthony Duarte and Mike Donovan, in 2005 to discover what had happened to McNeil, as well as other young men who died under similar circumstances. Gannon even went further and mortgaged his own house and maxed out his credit cards to help fund the investigation. The following year, after watching a report on CNN about similar suspicious drownings in the Midwest and looking into them, Gannon and his team were joined by Dr. Lee Gilbertson, a criminal justice professor and gang expert at a university in Minnesota, who had been studying the Midwest drownings for years. Gannon's investigations agency, GD Investigations, was officially established in 2007. In 2006, the team started traveling to all of the sites where the victims were found, and could discover similarly smiley faces graffiti, 9 of them drawn with horns, either where the men were put in the water or where they were found. Actually, many were seen on bridges, but unfortunately it was too late to check the New York City cases or the earlier ones in the Midwest. Between 1997 and 2008, authorities pulled the dead bodies of more than 40 young white men out of rivers and lakes in more than 25 cities across 11 states, with police consistently theorizing that the men had grown too drunk, gotten too close to the water, fallen in, and could not get out in their intoxicated state. In 2008, Gannon, Duarte, and Gilbertson announced their findings to the public as the Smiley Face Murder Theory, bringing forth evidence of over 40 potential victims. They have theorized that the young men found dead in bodies of water across several Midwestern American states from the late 90s to the 2010s did not accidentally drown but were all murdered, either by an individual or by an organized group of serial killers. The term smiley face became connected to the alleged murders when it was made public that Gannon and Duarte had discovered graffiti depicting a smiley face near locations where they think the murder had dumped the bodies in at least a dozen of the cases. Furthermore, they suggested that this smiley face murderer may have been motivated to kill out of envy. In 2008, Gannon said to the Daily Beast, "To me, this is one of the most dangerous domestic groups in the United States, and somebody needs to pay attention to them. The level of sophistication of the group is a lot greater than we'd imagined. Now we know they communicate with each other on the dark web. We know there's surveillance and counter-surveillance." On the other hand, the same year, the FBI issued a press release claiming that they have not developed any evidence to support links between these tragic deaths or any evidence substantiating the theory that these deaths were the work of a serial killer or killers, and they related the vast majority of these instances to probable drowning due to alcohol intoxication. A document called Drowning the Smiley Face Murder Theory, released in 2010 by the Center of Homicide Research, outlines 18 reasons for the falsehood of the theory, including lack of evidence of victim trauma, lack of exact match among smiley faces, and lack of evidence relating the drownings to a serial killer motive. In 2013, ABC7 in Chicago reported that since 1997, the number of mysteriously drowned college-aged men whose bodies have been found in clusters around the country had reached 200. All victims shared a strange similarity: Caucasian male, 18 to 26 years old, good-looking, athletic, and very intelligent. Their bodies were found in a river, pond, lake, or stream after a night out drinking. All these cases have been individually classified as accidental or undetermined and have not been investigated as possibly related crimes. However, by 2020, there were over 300 cases in Gannon's team database. Now it's time to review what happened to some of the victims of drowning cases. The list is extensive. That's why we will go through only some of them. Believe me, the issue is darker than it sounds. Patrick McNeil. The death of Patrick McNeil from New York sparked Gannon's interest in the cases. 20-year-old McNeil was a Fordham accounting major. He vanished on February 16, 1997, after drinking with friends at Dapper Dog Bar on Manhattan's Upper East Side. His body was dragged out of the East River on April 7, 1997, 12 miles away. He was found floating in the water face up, which is extremely rare for drowning victims, and an autopsy revealed ligature marks around his neck. According to evidences, McNeil was dead before he ever hit the water, and the absence of what's known as skin slippage under his feet indicated he'd been in the water for less than a day, although being disappeared for 2 months. The cause of McNeil's death was ruled a drowning, but the manner was undetermined. However, Gannon's investigation pointed toward murder. Witnesses told him a car with a man and a woman was double parked outside the bar when McNeil emerged and followed him. As Gannon later said, he had walked the whole area and could hardly find any access to the river. Gannon promised McNeil's parents he would never give up and would get justice for their son. Anthony Skifton. 19-year-old Skifton was studying at University of Wisconsin, La Crosse. He was last seen by friends on October 10, 1997 at 2:30 a.m. while leaving a party at a bar. His body was found 10 days later in Isle-la-Plume Slough, an offshoot of the Mississippi River. According to the autopsy report, acute alcohol intoxication was the contributing factor in the death. Cause of death ruling was drowning by accident. However, according to his family, Skifton could not swim and was scared to death of water. Ryan Getz. Getz, 21 years old, was a mechanical engineering student at Kettering University in Michigan. He disappeared on December 31, 1997, after celebrating New Year's Eve with friends. He left his friends to drop by his girlfriend's apartment to see if she had left yet. Since she was not home, Getz asked her neighbors to call her apartment. However, they were the last ones to see Getz, and later told the police that he was very drunk and a stranger was with him that they believed Getz followed the unidentified person into another apartment. His body was found 3.5 months later trapped on a fallen tree in the Red Cedar River. Cause of death ruling was drowning. There was some indication that he might have been involved in a fight. Keith Noble. Keith Noble, 19, was a student at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. He was last seen on April 25, 1998 at 1:10 a.m. while leaving a party near the west side of campus in Athens, Ohio. His body was found 11 days later in the Hocking River 200 yards south of the White Mill Dam near the west side of campus. Cause of death ruling was drowning, intoxication with no indication of physical violence. Jeffrey Giese. Jeffrey Giese, 21, was a University of Wisconsin, La Crosse mechanical engineering major. He vanished on April 11, 1999, after a night of partying with friends at Club Millennium La Crosse, Wisconsin. His body was found the following month in the Mississippi River by fishermen. According to the autopsy report, the cause of death was probably drowning. On the other hand, based on 4 shallow self-inflicted scars on his arms, authorities suspected it could have been suicide. However, his father, Richard Giese, believed the alcohol-related deaths might be related, and he suspected someone might be pushing drunken young men into the Mississippi. Brian Weltson. Brian Weltson, 21, was a student of finance with a 3.8 GPA at Northern Illinois University in DeKalb, Illinois. He went missing during the early morning hours of New Year's Day 2000, after celebrating New Year's at Irish Eyes pub with his friends. After returning back to the Ambassador East Hotel in Chicago, where they were sharing a room, his friends went up to the room, leaving Weltson behind near the hotel entrance, and then he vanished. Weltson's body was not found until 77 days later on a beach in Gary, Indiana. According to police, Weltson must have been intoxicated and fallen into Lake Michigan, drowned, and his body then traveled around 30 miles from there over the 2.5 months he was missing. His death was ruled as an undetermined drowning. However, despite his body supposedly being in the water for 77 days, his autopsy report only indicated the minimal decomposition, with no fluid in the lungs and no sand found in the stomach. This evidence shows that Weltson did not drown and was most likely dead upon entering the water. According to Dr. Gilbertson estimation, Weltson had only been dead 36 hours before his body was discovered. Christopher Jenkins. Christopher Jenkins, 21, was a University of Minnesota marketing and entrepreneurial management major. He was a star athlete, a two-time team captain of his lacrosse team, who was set to graduate with stellar grades from the university's prestigious Carlson School of Management. He was last seen on October 31, 2002, after being kicked out of Lone Tree Bar and Grill in downtown Minneapolis, where he was partying with his friends. 4 months later, his body was found encased in ice in the Mississippi River, face up with his arms crossed across his chest. Although Jenkins' death was initially classified as an accidental drowning, police later agreed to change it to homicide in 2006, after 4 years of exhaustive efforts by his parents. His family has said that they have various reasons to believe he was thrown in the back of a van, abducted, tortured, and eventually murdered. Paul Kochu. Paul Kochu, 22, was an athletic young man, graduated from Pittsburgh's Donetsk University and working as a nurse at Allegheny General Hospital. He went missing in the early morning hours of December 16, 2014. After drinking at a bar and watching Monday Night Football, he left his friends and went home, where he accidentally cut his hand. His roommates came home to help clean that up. Kochu was last seen at 1:30 a.m. after his friends left to get food. 10 days after, police released surveillance footage that captured Kochu at 2:45 a.m., heading in the direction of the 10th Street Bridge, which crosses the Monongahela River in downtown Pittsburgh. 3 months later, Kochu's body was found floating in the Ohio River near Wheeling, West Virginia, with a small cut on his hand, 3 broken ribs, and a 1-inch wound on his scalp. The cause of death was officially ruled as undetermined drowning. However, Kochu's parents have long voiced their suspicions that foul play was involved in their son's death. Dakota James. Dakota James, a 23-year-old graduate student at Donetsk University, who was working full-time while getting his MBA, vanished on January 25, 2017, after a night out with friends at a bar on Liberty Avenue in downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and heading for home on the north side. The last known picture of him alive was caught on a surveillance camera which showed James entering a dark alley. His body was discovered 40 days later, floating in the Ohio River, about 10 miles from where he was last seen in downtown Pittsburgh. James's death was listed as an accidental drowning. However, as Gannon said, there is no way a body could travel 10 miles through a dam, 40 days, and be that pristine. It's impossible. In December 2018, Gannon and Cyril Vecht, a forensic pathologist, reported that based on an independent examination on James's autopsy photos, he might have been strangled due to ligature marks on the back furrow of the neck. Gannon believes that James was then drugged with GHB, abducted, held for some time, killed, and dumped in a body of water. Pam James said her family won't give up until they know exactly what happened to Dakota. I don't want my son's name going down in history as that drunk kid who walked down the alley and walked across that river and drowned, because he didn't do it. You will certainly agree that the most heartbreaking point is having no accurate answer to a terrific question blowing the mind. What really happened to these young men? Gannon and his team have developed additional physical evidence and expanded their database of potential victims of the Smiley Face killers to 335 cases of suspicious drownings, and emphasized the presence of evidence related to lividity, insect presence, GHB traces, decomposition rates, and the presence of smiley face graffiti. After all these years, Gannon hasn't forgotten his promise to McNeil's mother, Jackie, who is still holding out hope she will finally get some answers. As she said, "I want to know what happened to Patrick. I need to know what happened to Patrick, and I want to know who's responsible. It's hard living every day not knowing." If this bizarre story captivated your attention, don't forget to like the video, leave your comments down below and subscribe to the channel. Meanwhile, by hitting the notification bell, you can stay up to date each time we upload a new mysterious case. Please, don't forget to share this video with your family and friends. Until next time, stay safe. We will be with you soon again with another shocking case.